Chapter 6, Part 3 of Call Mr. Fortune. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mike Ferry 252. Call Mr. Fortune by H.C. Bailey. Chapter 6. Phase 5, The Reply. Their admiration for Reggie Fortune received a shock the next day. It came by telephone. Just after his late and lazy breakfast, Reggie was rung up from Scotland Yard. Bell spoke. Mr. Lomas thought that Mr. Fortune would like to know that Sanford had gone down to Mr. Kimball's place. Reggie answered. Oh, Peter. In a quarter of an hour he was in Lomas's room asking for confirmation. There was no doubt. The detective watching Sanford's chambers had followed him to Victoria and heard him take a ticket to Alwenstow, Kimball's place, and was gone with him. So that's the next move, said Lomas. And if you can tell me what it means, I shall be obliged to you. Reggie dropped his hand on the table. Not a guess, he said. How can a man guess? We don't even know how much they know, or whether one knows what the other knows. I can fancy Sanford. What's the use? So runs my dream, but what am I? An infant crying in the night, an infant crying for the light, and with no language but a cry. Same like you, Lomas. I notice you are not so much the moral sage this morning, Lomas said sourly. Lomas, dear, don't be unkind. I can't bear it. I wish to God I was down there. Damn it, we've got 2 men down there now. One on Sanford, one on Kimball. They'll be knocking their heads together. What the devil do you think he could do? Nothing. Lord, don't I know it? Nothing. That's what makes me peevish. Lomas said severely that he had work to do, and Reggie left him, promising to come back and take him out to lunch, which he received as if it were a threat. But when Reggie did come back, Superintendent Bell was in the room, and Lomas listening to the telephone. Bell looked oddly at Reggie. Lomas raised a blank and pallid face from the receiver. Sanford has murdered Kimball, he said. Oh, Peter, I wonder if he's brought it off, Reggie murmured. Has he brought it off after all? He bit his lip. Lomas was talking into the telephone, asking for details, giving instructions. Hold the line. Cut that out, said Reggie. We'll go down. Lomas, please. Tell your chap to meet us at the house. My car's here. Lomas gave the orders and rang off. I'll have to go, I suppose, he agreed. One doesn't kill cabinet ministers every day. More's the pity. Damn the case. There's nothing in it, though, Fortune. Sanford was walking up to the house. He met Kimball in the lane. They were crossing the ornamental water in the park when they had a quarrel. Kimball was thrown in. He called out, "You scoundrel, you have murdered me." When they got Kimball out, he was dead. That's all. I'm afraid it washes your stuff about Kimball right out. Well, well, Reggie drawled, looking through his eyelashes. Where is he that knows Lomas? From the great deep to the great deep he goes, Lomas. We'll get on. What about lunch? Damn lunch, said Reggie, and went out. The other two, who liked food far less than he but could not go without it, lingered to collect sandwiches and found him chafing in the driver's seat. They exchanged looks of horror. I'm too old for Mr. Fortune's driving, and that's a fact, Bell mumbled. When I got out alive after that day at Woking, I swore I'd never go again, said Lomas. But they quailed before Reggie's vigilant politeness when he asked them if they would please get in. It is in the evidence of Lomas that they only slowed once, when an old lady dropped her handkerchief in the middle of Croydon. He is in conflict with the statement of Bell as to the most awful moment, for he selects the episode of the traction engine with trucks at the Alwenstow crossroads, and Bell chooses the affair of the motor bus and the caravan at Merstham. They agree that they arrived at Alwenstow Park in a cold sweat. A detective came out onto the steps to meet them, and watched reverently Bell and Lomas helping each other out. Reggie ran up to him. Which are you? Beg pardon, sir. Oh, I'm Hall. I had Mr. Kimball. It was Parker had Mr. Sanford. He turned to Lomas. Good morning, sir. I tried to get you on the telephone, but they said you were on your way down. Oh, you've been on the telephone too? When I heard what Parker's information was, I rung up quick, sir. It's a very queer business, sir. Where's Parker and where's Sanford? I suppose you've arrested him? Well, no, sir. Not strictly speaking. We detained him pending instructions. Damn, you're very careful. Parker saw the murder committed, didn't he? Well, sir, if I may say so, that's drawing conclusions. I don't understand Parker would go as far as that. Good God. said Lomas. "Where the devil is Parker?" "Keeping Mr. Sandford under observation, sir, according to instructions. Beg your pardon, sir. I've heard a story, and I quite agree it all happened like that. But you haven't heard mine." Lomas looked round him. The house was too near. "We'll walk on the lawn," he announced. "Now then, Parker says the two men quarrelled on the bridge over the lake, and Kimball was thrown in. As he fell, he called out, 'You scoundrel, you've murdered me.' And you say that isn't murder. Did Sergeant Parker say thrown in?" said Hall with surprise in his face and his voice. "I believe he didn't," said Lomas slowly. "No, he said Kimball was thrown off, and as he fell in he called out." "That's right, sir," said Hall heartily. "But I reckon there's more to it than that. When Mr. Kimball came out this morning, I was waiting for him in the park. It was rather touch and go, because he had some men at work above the lake. He went down that way to the station. As he was crossing the bridge, he tried the rails. It's very odd, sir, but a bit of the bar. It's sort of a rustic stuff. Was that loose, it came off in his hand. He put it back and went on. He met Mr. Sandford in the road and turned back with him. I had to get out of the way quick. I just they were coming back to the house, so I did a run and dropped over the fence and was away on the other side of the lake. Then I went into the rhododendrons and waited for them to pass. You see, sir, Parker had to keep well out of sight behind, and I was as near makes no matter. Well, if you'll believe me, it was Mr. Kimball made the quarrel, and all in a minute he made it. 1 minute they were walking quite friendly, the next he whips round on Mr. Sandford and he called him a bad name. I couldn't hear all, he was talking so quick, but there was ugly words in it. Then he made to strike Mr. Sandford, and Mr. Sandford closed and chucked him back, and into the water he went, just where that same rail that he looked at was loose. But it's true, as he fell he called out, 'You scoundrel, you've murdered me.'" "Well, well, so he didn't bring it off after all," said Reggie. "We trumped his last card." "Sir?" said the detective. "You are the trump," said Reggie. "Oh, my aunt, I feel much better. I wonder if there's any lunch in these parts. What about it, Lomas, old thing?" "I'm damned if I understand," said Lomas. "I want Sandford. Let's go up to the house." They found Sandford sitting in an easy chair in the dead man's library. He was reading, to Reggie's ineffable admiration, he was reading a book by Mr. Sidney Webb on the history of trade unions. Sergeant Parker, the detective, made himself uncomfortable at the table and pored over his notebook. All right, Parker. Quite understood." Lomas waved him away. "Good afternoon, Mr. Sandford. Sorry to detain you. Most unfortunate affair." "Good afternoon. It is not necessary to apologize," said Sandford completely himself. "I realize that the police must require my account of the affair. Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Kimball rang me up to my rooms. I did not learn from where he was speaking. He said that my affair, that was his phrase, my affair had taken a new turn, and he wished me to come and see him here this morning. He named the train by which I was to travel. I thought it strange that he should bring me into the country, but I had no valid ground of objection. Accordingly, I came this morning. I thought it strange that he sent no conveyance to meet me. I started to walk to the house. In the lane he met me walking. He talked of indifferent things in a rather broken manner, I thought, but that was common with him, and yet I was surprised he did not come to the point. He was, however, quite friendly until we reached the bridge of the lake. Then, without any warning or reason, he turned upon me and was violently abusive. His language was vulgar and even filthy. He attempted to strike me, and I defended myself. I was, in fact, a good deal alarmed, for he was, as you know, much bigger and heavier than I, and he was in a frenzy of rage. To my surprise, I may say my relief, I was able to resist him. I pushed him off. Really, you know, it seemed quite easy, and the handrail behind him gave way, and he fell into the water. As he fell, he called out, 'You scoundrel, you have murdered me.' I can only suppose he was not responsible for his actions." "Much obliged," said Lomas. "I'm afraid you've had a distressing time." "It has been a remarkable experience," said Sandford. "May I ask if there is any reason why I should not return to town?" No. Lomas looked at him queerly. "You have an uncommon cool head. They'll want your evidence at the inquest, of course, but it's fair to say I quite accept your story." "I'm obliged to you," said Sandford in a tone of surprise, as if he could not conceive that anyone should not. "I am told there is a train at 3:35. Good afternoon." One moment," said Reggie. "Do you know of any reason in the world Kimball had to hate you?" "Certainly not," said Sandford in offended dignity. "Our relations were short and wholly official. I conceived that he had no reason to complain of my services. And yet he meant to murder you, or have you hanged for his murder. If he did, I can only suppose that he was was out of his mind. Was he out of his mind when he worked the coal ramp to ruin you? Dear me, said Sanford. Do you really suggest, sir, that Mr. Kimball was responsible for that scandalous piece of finance? Who else? But really, you startled me. That is to say, as a minister, he betrayed the secrets of the department? Well, he didn't stick at a trifle, did he? The poor fellow must have been mad, said Sanford with grave sympathy. Yes, but why was he mad? Why did he hate you? My dear chap, do search your memory. Can you think of any sort of connection between Kimball and you? I never heard of him till he became prominent in the house. I never saw him till he came into the office. Our relations were always perfectly correct. No, I can only suppose that he was insane. Is it any use to try to discover reasons for the antipathies of madness? I have not studied this subject, but it seems obvious that they must be irrational. I am sorry I cannot help your investigations. I believe I had better catch my train. Good afternoon. You know, I begin to like that fellow. He's so damned honest, said Reggie. Cold-blooded fish, said Lomas. Begad, he don't know how near he was to dead. Did you ever hear anything less plausible than that yarn of his? If we didn't know it was true, we wouldn't believe a word of it. Good God, suppose Hall hadn't been down here watching. We should have had the outside facts. Sanford, who had been accused and suspended by Kimball, suddenly comes down to Kimball's house, meets him, quarrels with him, and throws him into the lake. And the man working in the park, a little way off, just saw the struggle, just heard Kimball call out that he was murdered, said Reggie. Don't forget the men. They're a most interesting touch. He always thought of everything, did Mr. Kimball. He had them there, just the right distance for the evidence he wanted. I don't know if you see the full significance of those men working in the park. Lomas sat down. I don't mind owning. I thought they were accidental. My dear chap, there was very little accidental in the vicinity of the late Kimball. They were there to give evidence that would hang Sanford, and that proves Kimball didn't mean to throw Sanford into the lake. He wanted to be thrown in. He wanted to be killed and get Sanford hanged for it. I suppose so, Lomas agreed. It's a case that's happened before, and you couldn't always say the creatures that planned it were mad. Not legally mad, not medically mad. I always said that. No, I don't know that it's even very strange. Quite a lot of people would be ready to die if they could get their enemies killed by their death, only they don't see their way. But he was an able fellow, the late Kimball. Able? I should say so. If our men hadn't been here, Sanford would have been as good as hanged. Nobody could have believed his story. Why did he come here? There's no evidence of Kimball's telephone call. What did Sanford come for? There's no reasonable reason. Kimball put him under a cloud. He was furious. He meant murder and did it. The jury wouldn't leave the box. That's right, sir, said Superintendent Bell. If it wasn't for Mr. Fortune, he'd be down and out. What you might call a rarity in our work. To save a man from a charge of murder before it comes along. How do you mean? Reggie seemed to come back from other thoughts. Oh, because I told you to have Kimball watched? Well, it was pretty clear he wasn't the kind to go about without a chaperone. We took that trick. I suppose Kimball's thinking, wherever he is, that we won the game. But I wouldn't say that. Why did he hate Sanford? My dear fellow, the man was mad. You mean he didn't like the way Sanford does his hair, or he thought Sanford was a German spy? No, he wasn't that kind of mad. There's something we don't know, Lomas, old thing. I dare say it's crazy enough. I'll bet you my favorite shirt it's something the ordinary sane man feels. If we are to go looking for something crazy which sane men feel, said Lomas. Speaking broadly, all the human emotions, said Reggie. Didn't you ever hate a man because he married a girl who was pretty? Don't be so godlike. They weren't either of them married, sir, said Bell in grave surprise. How do you know? Reggie snapped. No, I don't suppose they were, but we don't know. We don't know anything. That's why I say we haven't won the game. Well, for God's sake, let's have some food. There was a modest pub in the village. I saw it when you let off your futile scream at the traction engine. Let's go. I don't seem to want to eat Kimball's grub. 2 or 3 days after Lomas received an invitation to lunch in Wimple Street. I owe you one, Reggie wrote. I owe myself one. I want to forget the high tea of Alwenstow. Do you remember the pickles? And the bacon? What had that pig been doing? A neurasthenic, I fear. A student of the nematoda. So naturally, when Lomas came, his first question was, what may nematoda be? Never mind, Reggie sighed. It's a painful subject, a disgusting subject, same like what we make our living by. They are among the criminals of animal life, real bad eggs. A sad world, Lomas, old thing. Let's forget all about crime. They did, for an hour and a half, at the end of which Lomas said dreamily, "You're a remarkable fellow, Fortune. I didn't know how you can retain any brain. You do yourself so well." "Yes, most seductive habit of life. I meant to say something when I came. What was it? I believe you have talked of everything else in creation. Ah, yes. Did you ever hear of the Kimball case? I think we have combed it all out." "Have you, though?" Reggie sat up. "Yes, we've been dealing with a stockbroker too. I'm really afraid there was a little bullying. We hinted that there might be developments about a certain murder case, and two of them began to talk. We got Van Mason's past." "Oh, that?" Reggie said. "Quite obvious, wasn't it? Kimball meant to use his coal scheme to ruin Sanford. He sent Mason, who had probably been his go-between in other financial things, to give the brokers the tip. It was also Van Mason who paid the money into Sanford's account. Remember the stout man in glasses? Then probably he struck for better pay, or they had a row. Anyway, he threatened to give the show away. Kimball couldn't trust him anymore. Daren't trust him. So he wiped Van Mason out. Is that right, sir? I'm not omniscient myself, but certainly Van Mason was the man who put the brokers onto it. There is not much doubt he went to Sanford's bank. By the way, Kimball had several big sticks. His valet says he liked weight. I dare say. Had Kimball any papers? Not a line that throws light on this. As you know everything, I'd like to hear why Kimball tried this murder plan last instead of first." "How can you be so unkind, Lomas? I keep telling you I don't know anything. I come and shout it in your ear. I don't know the thing that really matters. Who is Kimball? Who is Sanford? What is he that Kimball couldn't bear him? I said that at the beginning, I say it now in italics. Good Lord, you can hear Kimball laughing at us." "Don't be uncanny." "Well, I'm not really sure he is laughing at us. Wait a while. But why did Kimball try murder last instead of first? Oh, that's easy. He was an Epicurean hate. He didn't want mere blood. He wanted the beggar to suffer, to be ruined, not just dead. Hence he wanted to break Sanford. Then Van Mason complicated the affair. Kimball had a murder on his back and I scared him. He thought we had enough to convict him or that we'd get it. He said to himself, 'I'm for it anyway, I'll have to die. Well, why shouldn't my death hang Sanford?' And he played that last card." "I suppose so," Lomas agreed. "Anyway, it's all quite rational, isn't it?" "I always said it would be. Grant that it was worth anything to ruin Sanford, and Kimball's a most efficient fellow. But why was it worth anything to ruin Sanford?" "Oh, God knows," said Lomas gravelly. "Yes, I wonder if Jane Brown does." He handed Lomas a letter. "Dear Sir, your advertisement for information about Mrs. Ellen Edith Sanford. I have some which is at your service if you can satisfy me why you want it. Yours truly, Jane Brown." "I should say, Jane is a character," said Lomas. "Yes, she allured me. I told her who I was, and she said she'd come to tea. She kept her appointment." Reggie found himself facing a large young woman. In her construction, nature had been very happy. She had decorated its work with admirable art. She was physically in the grand style, but she had a merry eye, and her clothes were not only charming, but of sophisticated elegance. Reggie, there is no doubt, stared at her for a moment and a half. "Miss Jane Brown," he said slowly. "I haven't brought my godfathers and godmothers, Mr. Fortune," she smiled. "But I am Jane Brown, really. I always felt I couldn't live up to it. I see you know me." "If seeing were knowing, I should know Miss Joan Amber very well. It's delightful to be able to thank her for the real Rosalind, or the Rosalind there is." She made him a curtsy. "I'm lucky. I didn't think he'd be like this. I expected an old man with glasses and—" "This," said Reggie maliciously, "this is the chief of the Criminal Investigation Department, Mr. Lomas." Lomas let his eyeglass fall. "I also am young enough to go to the theatre. I shall go on being young so long as Miss Amber is acting." "May I sit down?" said she pathetically. "You're rather overwhelming. I thought it would be terrific and severe and suspicious, but you know you're bland. Simply bland." "This is your fault, Lomas," said Reggie severely. "I have often been called flippant and even futile, but never bland before. Never bland. It is a tribute to your maturity, my dear Fortune. Her golden eyes sent a glance at Reggie. Mature? She said. I suppose you are real? Oh, let's be serious. I am Jane Brown, you know. Amber, of course. I had to have another name for the stage. Amber, because of my hair. She touched it. And your eyes, said Reggie. Never mind, said she, with another glance, but the gaiety had gone out of them. My father was a doctor in Liverpool. He is worth 20,000 of me, and he never made enough to live on. A poor middle-class practice. The work wore him out by the time he was 50, and now he's an invalid in Devonshire. He can't walk upstairs, even. Heart, you know, and he simply pines to work. Oh, I know this doesn't matter to you, but I can't forget it. If only people were paid what they're worth. I beg your pardon, this isn't businesslike. Well, he was the doctor the Kimball family went to. Old Mr. Kimball was a clerk, and the son, the man who was drowned the other day, began like that too. The old people died about the time younger Mr. Kimball and his sister grew up. She kept house for her brother. He began as a broker and got on. In a way, my father always says that. In a way, he was devoted to her. Nothing he could pay for was too good for her. He always wanted her with him, but he made awful demands on her. She mustn't have any interest of her own. She mustn't make any friends, like some men are with their wives, you know. Horrible, isn't it? She turned upon Reggie. Common form of selfishness, passing into mania, not only male, you know. Some others are like that. Yes, I know they are, but it's worse with men and their wives. The wife can't grow up, the children can't, Reggie agreed. It is exactly that, said she eagerly. You understand? Oh, well, this isn't businesslike either. Ellen Kimball fell in love. He was just an ordinary sort of man, a clerk of some sort. Sandford was his name. Horace Kimball was furious. My father says Sandford was nothing in particular. There was no special reason why she should marry him or why she shouldn't. He was insignificant, hereditary. Reggie nodded to Lummis. I beg your pardon? Your father understood men, Miss Amber. Indeed he does. Of course, Horace Kimball did the absurd thing, said she mustn't marry, abused Sandford, and so on. And of course, that made her marry. Unfortunately, this really seems to be the only thing against her. Unfortunately, she was married in a sly, secret sort of way. She didn't tell her brother she made up her mind, and when the marriage was to be, or anything. She simply slunk out of his house and left him to find out. I suppose he had terrified her, poor thing. Or his bullying made her sullen, said Miss Amber. It was rather feeble of her. Only one hates to blame her. Her brother was furious. My father says that he never saw such a strange case of a man holding down a passionate rage. He thought at one time that Horace Kimball would have gone mad. The thing seemed like an obsession. Doesn't it seem paltry? A man wild with temper because he was jealous of his sister marrying? Most jealousy is paltry, Lummis shrugged. Jealous of his sister marrying, Reggie repeated. Yes, I dare say 7 in 10 men are. Common human emotion. Commonest in the form of mothers hating the sons' wives, Miss Amber. Still, men do their bit. Fathers proverbially object to daughters marrying. Brothers, well, there's quite a lot of folklore about brothers killing their sisters' lovers. Yes, common human emotion. I think jealousy is simply loathsome, said Miss Amber with a quiver of her admirable nose. Well, it's fair to say Horace Kimball seemed to get over the worst of his. He just lost himself in his business, my father says. He wouldn't see his sister again, not even when a child was born. It was a boy. He simply swept her out of his life. Even when Sandford got into trouble, he wouldn't hear of helping her. My father quarreled with him over that. He said to my father, she's made a bed and they can all die in it. Oh, I know he's dead and one oughtn't to say things, but I call that simply devilish. Yes, I believe in the devil too, said Reggie. Devilish. You're exactly right, Miss Amber. Sandford got into trouble, did he? What was that? It was some scandal about his business, a breach of trust in some way. His employers didn't prosecute, but they dismissed him in disgrace. My father doesn't remember the details. It was giving away some business secrets. Reggie looked at Lummis. That's very interesting, he said. Interesting? Poor people, it was misery for them. Sandford was ruined. My father says he never really tried to make a fresh start. He just died because he didn't want to go on living, and his wife broke her heart over it. She seemed like a woman frightened out of her senses, my father says. She got it into her head that it was all her brother's fault. fault, that he had planned the whole thing. It was absurd, of course, but can you wonder? I don't wonder, said Reggie. She was deadly afraid of her brother. She made up her mind that he would be the death of her baby too. So she ran away from Liverpool and hid in a little village in North Wales, Land Fairfetching, and nobody knew where she had gone. She had a little money of her own, and her husband had been well insured. She had just enough, and she lived quite alone in a cottage off the road to the mountains, and there she died. My father says the son did rather well. He got scholarships to Oxford, and my father fancies he went into the civil service, but he lost sight of him after the mother died. I'm infinitely obliged to you, Miss Amber, said Reggie in Frankfurty. Oh no, don't. I always thought that poor woman's story was too miserably sad. I don't know why you wanted it. No, I'm not asking. But if it could set anything right or do anybody any good, it seems somehow to make it better. It wouldn't be so uselessly cruel. Over the past, the gods themselves have no power, Reggie said. We can't help her, poor soul. I dare say it's something to her to know that her son is safe and making good, in spite of all the devilry. Something to her? Of course it is, said Miss Amber, and looked divine. There's that, said Reggie, watching her. You won't mind my saying professionally that you've been very useful, Miss Amber, said Lomas. You have cleared up what was a very tiresome mystery. I was being bothered. That serious disturbance of the machinery of empire. He succeeded, as he desired, in setting the conversation to a lighter tune. He made Miss Amber's eyes again merry. He did not prevent Reggie from looking at her. You must promise me another opportunity to thank you, he said as she was going. Dear me, I thought you had been doing nothing else, said she demurely, and looked at the table and made a face. Oh, Mr. Fortune, what a tea! I leave all my reputation behind me. Men hate to see women eat, don't they? But do men always make teas like this? I've a simple mind, I've lived the simple life. She looked at him fairly. You said simple. Do you know how I feel? I feel as if I hadn't a secret left all of my own. And she swept away. He was a long time gone, letting her out. And that's that, Reggie said when he came back. Really? Lomas was dim behind cigar smoke. All quite natural now, isn't it? My dear fellow, you knew it all, and you knew it right. You told me so, comrade. Reggie lit his pipe. Jealousy, hate, mania. He broke the man the girl married. Curious that affair, wasn't it? Even the great criminal he runs in a groove. He keeps to one kind of crime. The same dodge for the son that he used for the father. Then either he lost track of the mother, or he preferred to hurt her through the son. He was an epicure in his little pleasures. The son came along. I dare say Kimball took that apartment because the son was in it, and then he was ready to smash everything for the sake of his hate, damage his own career, do a filthy murder, die himself if he could torture his sister's child. Yes, the devil is with power, Lomas. I fancy you annoy him a little, my dear Fortune, but how can you believe in the devil? You have just seen her. Reggie smiled. She is a woman, isn't she? I think he might act on that theory. When is it to be? Lomas, old thing, you're not only blind, you're obvious, which is much worse. End of Chapter 6. Recorded by Mike Ferry 252. End of Call, Mr. Fortune by H.C. Bailey.